Big moves are coming for the Toronto Maple Leafs as free agency is officially starting to get underway. Obviously, there's a couple games left in the Stanley Cup playoffs, so we saw a lot of trades today, and a Mitch Marner trade could be coming. So we're going to break that down as well as discuss some Tyler Bertuzzi free agency updates. There's a lot to go over there, and a new report has emerged revealing his potential future with the Maple Leafs. So we're going to break all that down in this live stream. Welcome in, everyone. Darius, it's a crazy day in the NHL. Lots of trades were happening, lots of different stuff went down, and today we're going to be breaking it all down on our weekly Wednesday night live stream. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. What's up, everybody? Shane, Axeman, Landshark. A lot going on today. And Darius, a lot going on in the NHL universe.
Yeah, a lot. And I think it's happening now. It kind of feels weird because we're still in the cup final. Like I'm used to this after the Stanley Cup finals have ended, but it's going so late this year that teams are like, hey, we got to start making moves before the draft here. We got to free up salary wherever we need. So saw the Rangers make a big move yesterday, getting rid of Barclay Goodrow. Kind of a weird one too, where San Jose picked them up. I wasn't really expecting that. And then you got Ty Dellandrea being moved. Didn't expect that. The LA Kings made a huge move, bring up a lot of salary. I think that's pretty interesting. So yeah, really weird day. Lots going on. And I think it's only going to get it's only going to heat up from here. Like there's more coming now because the draft is right around the corner. So very fun.
Yeah, especially once the Stanley Cup ends. Hopefully the Oilers can come back from down 3-0. What's up, Jose? What's up, hockey player? Yeah, kind of crazy. It's been a bit of a crazy day in the NHL. I mean, you had the Markstrom trade. You had all this up, the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. And the only one that really impacted the Leafs in any way was the Markstrom one because the Leafs were linked to him in a Marner deal. But looking at what the Flames got back, Marner would have definitely been an overpay for Jacob
100%.
Markstrom, given at this point of their careers. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. And you mentioned it. I feel like a Marner trade is coming. I don't know if it's now. It'll probably be a while away, definitely after July. But I mean, we saw the Kings, they traded Pierre-Luc Dubois because of that no-move clause that was about to kick in on July 1st. If only the Leafs would have done that last year, but I don't know. Steven saying, do you think Marner will still get traded this offseason? Yes. No changes for the Leafs. Not yet, but I think this is the beginning of things to come with the offseason, especially once the Stanley Cup is over. That's when things are really going to start to heat up, but we're seeing all these moves and maybe some teams clearing some cap space, the Kings perhaps, for a Marner trade.
I think other teams needed to start making moves for the Leafs to make moves because how are you going to trade Mitch Marner with all these other teams at the salary cap limit, right? So I think things are going to start rolling now. Like you mentioned, the Kings, I think that would be a very interesting trade partner for the Leafs. Out of conference in the Pacific Division, they just got rid of a player that they thought was going to work out and obviously didn't. So do we still think, I can't speak for you, Nick, but I think Marner definitely gets traded still this offseason. There was a lot of talk after the season ended of we're not going to run it back. We can't do the same thing again. This idea of the core four is done. And I think a lot of the reports, like I've said in videos this week and last week, a lot of the reports we've been seeing lately, I think are coming from the Marner camp, not from the Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs, I think, are really quiet right now. So I think they know what they want to do. And I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen quick. The draft is next Friday, I think already. So it's coming quick. It's coming soon. He's going to get dealt right after July 1st. So.
And we're going to be here for, I mean, really for everyone watching, July 1st, the first week of July is going to be absurd. Like, expect multiple uploads a day, expect crazy stuff for the first week or two of July. Marner should go to Chicago and feed Bedard for 8 years. I'd honestly like to see that for both sides, just to see what they could do. Only Leafs goalie should go for Saros. I did mention that in today's video, but let's transition now and let's get into some of the Tyler Bertuzzi stuff. And Shane, we do have a little thing for you later, because I remember you asked us a question in last week's stream, and we were prepared. We did not forget. You probably forgot what the question was, but we definitely didn't. So this is what Tyler Bertuzzi's agent said. He said, on the talks so far, we've had productive talks. The player realizes that there are other areas for the team to address. We'll see where it goes. And we're going to have a full video covering every single bit of this tomorrow. But I don't know. Tyler Bertuzzi, the more I think about it, I don't know. I'm not a huge Bertuzzi guy personally. I know a lot of Leafs fans really like Bertuzzi. I'm not a huge Bertuzzi guy. It does make sense, but I'd almost rather a different player. And we had a video today on a forward that is very, very good that could replace Mitch Marner. But Darius said the Bertuzzi talks. His agent spoke out today.
Yeah, I mean, he's only been a Leaf for 1 year. I don't have any real emotional attachment to this player, right? Like if he wasn't to re-sign, I still am very much on the fence with him, whether I think he's going to re-sign or not. I don't know. I think he holds all the cards really. If he wants to come back, it's going to be for less than what he can get with another team. That's just the fact of the matter. The Leafs won't be able to afford to pay him what he wants, which is probably like 6 million, 6 years, something like that. Just doesn't make sense for the Leafs. So if he wants to take a little bit less on term, then I'm sure that they'll give him, a pretty handsome deal, like in terms of money and AAV, as long as he signs, for less years, and obviously less money too than the open market. I think he's going to get more money out there. It just depends if he wants to be a Leaf, and I'm sure the Leafs obviously want to retain his services. So it'll be interesting, because if he does go out the door, to me, it's like, who do you replace that player with? I don't know if there's too many good comparables out there for him. So should be interesting. I don't think Robertson's the answer at that position, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, I brought that up for a reason. One of the plan to save Robertson, or have Robertson in Bertuzzi's spot in the top 6 to save more money for defense. I wouldn't hate that necessarily in the sense of saving money for defense, but I don't know if Robertson is the guy I'd want to have replacing Tyler Bertuzzi, right, especially in the playoffs. I didn't forget what moves you make if you were the GM, not worrying about cap. Yeah, we're going to get there, Shane. We definitely have some stuff on that.
Got it.
Do you think the Leafs will go after Jake Gensel? Steven, check out our video from earlier today. Literally like 5 hours ago, we spoke on Jake Gensel and the report, because the Leafs are now also linked to Jake Gensel, which we can get to in this. Do you guys play NHL? I think Darius plays NHL.
I do. Yeah,
I haven't played this year. I played last year, though.
Yeah, the game's terrible this year.
Only if Marner gets traded. Yeah, like there's just so much. Today was a crazy day in the NHL. Unfortunately, none of it was Leafs related, so we don't have. I mean, Markstrom was the most Leafs related thing we've had really all offseason. But Darius, it kind of gets me excited for what's to come just in the offseason in general. Just seeing all these moves happen this early before the cup is even over is kind of crazy. And the 2 trades were also kind of crazy. We saw Dubois for Darcy Kemper 1-for-1 swap, which was a disaster class from the Kings. At least the first trade was. This trade, it makes sense that they did it. They cut their losses, so respect to the GM for that. But, I mean, 34-year-old Darcy Kemper for a 25-year-old. And then you also had Markstrom dealt for what will be a late second-round pick and Kyle. So, I don't know.
Yeah, Ball, I mean, he's a pretty decent defensive defenseman, but like the fact that we were talking about Marner in that trade, like the Leafs would have got way more than just Markstrom from the Calgary Flames. But like you said, like I'm excited for the ball to get rolling now with all these trades and all these scenarios, because like the draft is next week. A lot of teams are going to be very active. A lot of teams don't like where they are, Leafs included, for sure, 100%. So it's going to be really exciting. And I think like I said, like it's going to start now. Like I wonder if Mitch Marner, I'm still thinking he gets traded after July 1st because of that signing bonus. That is a big thing holding them back here. But I think the talks at least start, because other teams are starting to move players out. Like LA can take on a pretty good, significant contract and a good player now, right? So maybe it's Marner, but and we'll get to that. But I think the ball will start rolling now. A lot of teams are going to be active. Like there was 5 trades today or something out of nowhere. We haven't seen anything to this point, and there was 5 trades out of nowhere today. So teams are restless. The Cup final is going too long, and it might go longer the way the Oilers are playing too. So we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of trades are going down. It's just very, very interesting, I guess, would be the word to put it. Especially with a lot of the trades that have happened so far have been very, very weird ones. So I don't even know how to feel about all these different things, and specifically the Pierre-Luc Dubois one. Only if Marner gets traded. NHL drags out playoffs too long. Definitely, well, they're long so far because of the down 3-0 with all the breaks and things like that. But I don't know, Darius. What do you think? What do you think's next for the Leafs? What do you think's next up for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the next couple of weeks?
Obviously, you want to focus on the draft. I don't think we're going to get a significant trade before July 1st. I think your focus is on the draft. I think there might be a small trade. I could see Liljegren going at the draft, right? For example, all the teams are converging. I could see him, getting dealt there because he is on the trading block, right? And another team is going to be interested in that player for sure. So I could see that happening, but I don't think anything significant happens until after July 1st. And then on July 1st, they're going to make a lot of signings. It's going to be weird because they might be making decisions on July 1st with free agents that have to do with trading Mitch Marner, and they won't do it till afterwards. Like they could be like way over the salary cap, right? And we'd be like, what's going on here? So it's going to be a weird summer in that way. But I'm confused at this point too, because you hear all this talk about, you don't want to run it back, and then you hear a bunch of reports about Mitch Marner's definitely staying, right? And you wonder where those reports are coming from. So my best bet is Marner gets traded. It's going to be after July 1st, and the Leafs are going to, make some pretty significant moves on July 1st. I think they want to retool completely. I think the identity of the team is going to completely change this year for sure. Liljegren inherited something last year and tried to make the best of it. They're changing this year, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately They have to, or else they're just going to be running it back over and over and over
Yeah.
again. And Brett Treliving, it's his first year, or I guess now it's his second full year in charge of the
Yeah.
team. He really only had the trade deadline of this year to figure out what was on the go with that. And again, quick update on Bertuzzi. The Bertuzzi one's interesting. Again, we'll save that for tomorrow's video. I'm not sure how I feel about Bertuzzi on a long-term deal, especially with what
Yeah.
and how much he's being rumored for. And Darius, I also want to touch on the Timothy Liljegren stuff. There's obviously this is Bertuzzi's cap hit and things like that, but Timothy Liljegren has been rumored in trade talks as well. And I'm curious in the chat, just type yes or no. Do you want to see Timothy Liljegren traded this offseason? Yes or no for Timothy Liljegren to be traded this offseason? Just a pretty simple question. Darius, I'll let you answer as well. I think it's about time.
I think yes. And as a quick aside, I just saw another comment about Marner's agent walking him to free agency. He is notorious for this, walking his clients to free agency. The reason why I don't think that's going to happen, his camp showed their hand this week, right? They want that 8th year on the extension. That's what they want. They want to sign and trade.
Yep.
They kind of showed their hand. So I don't know. I really don't know anymore. I wonder if he does get traded or a sign and trade, right? I really do wonder about that. An extension in Toronto just doesn't make sense for the philosophy that the Leafs want to move away from. Yeah, a lot of yeses in the chat. I think Liljegren does get moved this year. I think the experiment, so to say, is done with Liljegren to this point.
Yeah, most people agree. Yes, yes, yes. And then also
we do have a no
from John Pisano. Interesting. No, Lily is breaking out this season. Possible. Darren with the yes. Also, hit the like button if you're new. Let's get to 30 likes. Seeing numbers go up is fun. Let's get to
the only reason. I don't know, Nick. What do you think about injuries like affecting a season? Do you think he can bounce back from that? Because like that injury definitely did affect him, but it's like, to what point is he going to come in next year and like play that much better? You know what I'm saying?
I think if they make the adequate moves, he'll probably get shifted out anyway. Just with if they make enough good moves, I'm not sure they want him to be the defenseman. Also, yeah, hit the like button. We're only at 8. We're better than that. We can get up to at least 30 minimum. Right now, they'll take 7 in a tax-free zone. He needs more ice time. Yeah, there's something to be said with the injury and needing more ice time if they can go out and do that. But trade him, get what you can right now to get those big trades. Yeah.
Yeah, he also still has some value right now, and he's an RFA. Like, it's very controlled. Like, you should probably move on from him right now before you get into a situation like, well, it wouldn't be close to Mitch Marner, but something like that, where like, okay, maybe it's time to move on. Let's do it right now instead of waiting until it gets worse. So I could see that happening. Like PLD got traded today, the year before his no movement clause kicked in. What a concept. What a concept. They saw a disaster coming and they moved on from it. So very interesting. Yeah, that's another great take too. Like there's going to be adequate talent in free agency to replace this player. And I think that's what the Leafs want to do and build through free agency, at least in the back end, right? So I think the identity of the Leafs defense is going to look different next year. I don't think Liljegren fits into their plans. We saw it in the playoffs too. I feel like he was targeted at times, right? Guys were dumping the puck in his corner. They were roughing him up because they knew they could. So I don't know if you can have this player on the team anymore. Although I think he'll play in the NHL still. So
definitely.
Yeah.
I'd say trade him if there's enough talent for agency to replace him. Kind of hard to replace a decent D-man. Yeah. I guess that's the other issue. But it also depends on what they get in the return back for Mitch Marner. I mean, if they get, I don't know what the package. Everything has to do with what they get back for Mitch Marner, which is the unfortunate thing for the.
We're waiting for that domino, but unfortunately, that domino is going to fall last after the draft and free agency, right? Because they're not going to be able. No team is taking that on with that salary bonus or the signing bonus. Sorry, so they have to wait for that. Whoever gets him essentially doesn't have to pay him. That's the other thing. Like until you resign him, right? Yeah. So
Bobby the Man McMahon will break out. Probably. Let's be honest.
He's gonna have a great year.
Solid goaltender. That is solid. We did with Wall. He played extremely more confident. Goaltending is another thing. I don't think Markstrom was the solution. I think that I don't know how they solved. Like Brossoit makes some sense to me.
Yep.
Saros maybe.
I think you go cheap with the goaltending right now because that's the way the NHL is going. More of a tandem vibe, and you wait for Hildeby. That's what you do. Because why would you go out and get Markstrom, for example, right now, and then he gets old and you're stuck with the contract? So I think the NHL is moving more towards that way. Not everyone feels that way. I think people still think you need an elite goaltender. But for example, the Edmonton Oilers are in the Stanley Cup final. Would you take Stuart Skinner as your starting goalie if you're the Leafs? I wouldn't say yes. So I don't know if you need like an elite goaltender like Adin Hill, for example, to win the Stanley Cup anymore. Best case scenario, you do, I think. But some teams still win with elite goaltenders. Bob is an elite goaltender, right? So it is still out there, but I don't know if it's as necessary anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that, yeah, the goaltending is a bit rough for most teams in the NHL, actually. There's not many great goalies out there, and even if they do, they can just flare out so randomly that it's interesting. Send Mitchie to Vegas. It's possible.
Yeah, Shea Theodore in return or something like that, Logan Thompson, right? Would they have beaten Boston if Wall stayed healthy? My thoughts are still yes, because I feel like the fact hockey is, especially in the playoffs, is like 90% mental to me. And when you get to the rink and you find out your goalie who can't make a save is going in net for game 7, I think that messes with you. And they were close, but I still think they played like they were scared to lose. And I think it was because they, the confidence in front of the goaltender that was in net was not there. So I wonder if they win, but that's, I say that every year.
Yeah. Trade proposal to Chicago, Mitch Marner and Timothy Liljegren to Maple Leafs. Yeah, there's a lot of different packages for Marner. I feel like that's what most of the streams end up being about anyway, because that's the biggest talking point for the Maple Leafs. We'd have beaten Boston with a healthy Wall, Matthews, Nylander, and McMahon.
Maybe. Because Boston was the best regular season team of all time last year, and they lost to the 8th seed Florida, right? Like anything can happen. So I do wonder what McMahon would have done, right? Like I think he's really coming to his own now. He's a better player. So would have been interesting to see him in there, but there's always next year, right? It's always next year. Would be interesting.
With a healthy Wall. Yeah, I don't know. I think about that a lot. I think the team wasn't. I'm happy that they lost the way they did. Obviously, I would have rather to see them win, but at least changes are coming now.
I think if they had won, and we've talked about this, Nick, like if they had won, they would have been kidding themselves in a way. You know what I mean? Like they would have moved on to the second round, but your problems are still there. Like you're just masking it and you're just, prolonging it. So not that I'm happy that they lost, but I'm glad that they, made the moves they made and are talking about certain moves now because of that loss. Because otherwise you'd just be kidding yourselves, I think, still and continue to go for it. Should we get into Shane's proposal from last week?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So Shane last week had a proposal where he said, I'll pull it up. It was a question for the next stream, which is now, what's one realistic move you'd both make if you were the Leafs GM and the salary cap basically didn't exist, right? There is a couple. Nick, I know you have one. One I have that like would make sense, like even with the salary cap, is obviously Marner to Vegas, and then you get Shea Theodore back, you get Logan Thompson, right? And maybe Carlson, like you fix some scoring, right? I think that could be very interesting. The salary cap could actually work with that. In a perfect world too, you take on Pietrangelo. I know he's a little bit older, but if the salary cap doesn't exist, right? If we're talking about if this was 2002, you take on Pietrangelo as well, and you really rejig your lineup. Obviously, you got a lot of pieces going the other way. I don't know what would go to Vegas, but I think if you got like a bunch of pieces like that from Vegas, obviously, and they're in a bit of a cap crunch too. So realistically speaking, that could work for them as well.
Yeah. But I actually lost a screenshot for the one that we're supposed to be doing. I literally forgot to grab it. So you can just say it because I think you can get it up.
Yeah. So
also leave that as well in the comments.
So Nick's was, and I thought this was very interesting. I'll grab it for you in a second here. Mitch Marner to the LA Kings because they've made room now for Quinton Byfield, a first-round pick, and Drew Doughty. I love that. I think Drew Doughty would be a great acquisition there as well for the LA Kings. I'm just not convinced you're going to get goaltending out of a Mitch Marner trade. I'm not sure that's going to happen.
It seems a lot less likely. I'd love to see a trade, but I don't see them actually pulling the trigger. He sells jerseys. Yeah, but
a lot of people sell jerseys now, though. Like Nylander and Matthews sell jerseys, but it's true. I feel like MLSE does have a little bit of that going on where sales are really good. Like revenue is way up.
Yeah.
And even though the team is not performing, things are going really well financially. So I think there's a little bit of that going on as well.
There's a reason to be complacent. Yeah.
Yes, at times. Although like it's a competitive sport. Don't you want to win? Right?
Well, that's what Keith Pelly said. He said, let's go out and we don't care about jersey sales. We care about winning, which is good to hear from him.
And Keith Pelly's done a lot of good things in other sports too, right? But it's we haven't seen in Toronto yet. And he's been here for what, like a month, 2 months? So he'll need time to get everything in order. But I'm a little scared in that way. I don't know if there's too much incentive for the Leafs to win, right? And I'm sure the players care. I'm not saying the players and the coaches don't care. It's just the team is not constructed properly. and I don't think it's necessarily the player's fault, right?
Yeah. A lot of business aspects get overlooked by us fans.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's going to come down to what they think is. I don't know, though. I don't know how much the Leafs. That's tough. We will never know the answer to that part. We will never know the answer to how much they actually value things like that. The team they have is perfect. They just need a healthy wall, a trade for a great goalie, and a partner for Riley. Actually, I did bring this up. We can look at their last season defensive pairings. They have Riley, Labushin's gone, Benoit, McCabe, Edmondson. Edmondson's also going to be gone. Liljegren will probably be gone.
I might big brain this, but I would argue every single guy here, except for the second pairing, is gone next year. I'm big braining it. All right. But
So
I
no
could see
Riley,
a scenario where Benoit and McCabe are the only two back. I'm just saying. I could absolutely see that scenario.
Yeah,
but again,
it's
a
either
lot
going
would
to be
have to
minimal
fall into
moves
place.
or just everything has changed. I feel like it'll be one of the two. And there's a
I
chance.
don't. And I don't think they need to change like everything, like blow it up. Even if you are getting good pieces back, I don't think they have to do that. But you have to change something with the core, right? You have to shake something up because it's simply not working to this point. So, it's just not. There has to be a trade. Yeah, Liljegren needs a trade, like a change of scenery, 100%. As a player, he needs it, and I think he'll flourish somewhere else. Sorry, 100%. I just don't think he's. I think his time's up in Toronto, right? I do, and I've always liked him as a player, but I just don't think he fits the style the team wants to play. I don't know if he's necessarily the best player for playoffs, right? Like I mentioned, we saw him get targeted last year. You could see it with your eyes. You don't have to look at the stats. You could see it. He was targeted. Guys were putting the puck in his corner and roughing him up whenever they could. So it's I see him getting traded. I think they want to not necessarily move on from him. Like I don't think they're pushing it, but if teams come to them, hey, we want Liljegren for this. Okay, great. Let's talk. I could see that happen.
Yeah, I agree. Marner to Anaheim. Trade proposal, yeah, you already sent that one. Lily needs a trade or a change. I mean, there's something to be said for him wanting to also have a change of scenery. But let's dive into some Bertuzzi stats here now, because I did bring these on. 43 points in 80 games, more of a playoff performer, blah, blah, blah. Debatable. I don't know how exactly I feel about bringing him back personally. But, yeah, this was on... Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Listeners, I was just going to read this quote. We've had productive talks, but the player realizes that there are other areas for the team to address. We'll see where it goes. Tyler Bertuzzi's agent, Todd Reynolds, with Terry Koshin. Any thoughts on this? And we can bring it back to this as well.
Yeah, I think he's really aware of the situation. It really comes down to if he wants to play for the Leafs or not. He's going to make more money elsewhere. That's a fact, right? So does he want to come back to play for the Leafs? That's up to him. He's going to make less. That's what it is. And I think that's the culture the Leafs have to kind of start instilling in players that are not named Austin Matthews and score almost 70 goals a year. You got to take less if you want to play so we can build a team. That's what it is. Other teams do that. That's what it's got to start to be here. So it's up to him if he wants to be a Leaf. Now, I wanted to ask the chat too. Do you want to see Bertuzzi? Like, are you married to Bertuzzi, like coming back, or would you be okay with him walking? Because I don't know if I have or had built up that much of an emotional connection to this player. I wonder if they could, fill his roster spot with somebody who makes less that could, produce almost as well. But I do also wonder what Bertuzzi will look like under Berube. That's the other thing I've been thinking as well. And I'm like, that's a little exciting, right? So I'm not married to bringing him back, to the idea of bringing him back, but at the same time, I think he would absolutely be useful to the Leafs next year. So we'll just have to see. He's approaching 30. So those 6-year contracts when you're 30, 31, those are very dangerous, Nick. So we'll just have to see. A lot of people not liking Robertson either. I mean, Robertson's been a topic of conversation as well. Sure. This past, year and a bit, right? Does he even stay? He could be another guy that maybe moves on. I wonder what he looks like under Berube as well. So interesting on the Robertson front as well.
Yeah, sorry, I just got a few things going on. Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately with Bertuzzi, it's like Max Domi should come back. There's no doubt about that. I think he needs to come back. He's going to come back. Bertuzzi, there's a lot more things you can do with the cap that he's going to get, whether that's $6 million, whether that's $5 million. You can use that in a lot of different ways. So I don't know if allocating 6x6 or 5x5, whatever it is, to Bertuzzi is the best way the Leafs want to utilize their cap, especially because last season they tried it and he wasn't the reason they didn't win games, but he also didn't go out there and do what they really thought he was going to do both in the regular season and in the playoffs. So I think it's just kind of a interesting spot for the Leafs to be.
Yeah, it is. And when you look at his point total,
And you hit the like button. Let's get to 30 likes.
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you,
If you're
Creepy,
watching, just click it. Numbers go up. Numbers go up, and we all love numbers going up. So just click it.
Yes, that's right. It's very.
Thank you.
It's nice to see. It's nice to see.
It's satisfying.
It's very satisfying. So, if you look at Bertuzzi's numbers last year too, a lot of them came in the second half where he finally figured it out. And I just don't know if the play style the Leafs play matches Bertuzzi. He's a very awkward player, right? Like you see all the clips out there, right? He's an awkward player. So I wonder what he would look like under Berube. I think it might be better for him, right? But he's going to have to take less. I wrestle with this idea all the time. I'm like, I would love to see Bertuzzi back, but not for that money. Not for that money. You have to build a winner. You do. And he didn't necessarily mesh with the team, right? And maybe it could have been the play style. The Leafs are going to change the way they play. Fact of the matter, they are next year. So it'll be interesting to see. The one constant is going to be Austin Matthews. He's going to score a lot of goals.
Tons of goals.
Yep.
Marner and Matthews, get his likes up. Hellebuck is what you need. Kings Fraser Minton is on his way up eventually. Easton Cowan is going to be up eventually, probably not next year.
Yep.
Even if you surrender Wall for Hellebuck, Jets would. Hellebuck had a horrible playoffs, like terrible. So it's like he was the best goalie in the NHL, and then they go in the playoffs and he just blows up.
But this is my thing about goaltending now in the NHL.
We need to get a Darius goaltending
graphic going.
It is changing.
Yes. No, I think it is. If you look at the Leafs when they won that series against Tampa, they completely exploited Tampa's defensive structure, and they were able to score a ton of goals in Vasilevsky, who's quote unquote the best goalie in the NHL, right? We saw it happen. So I think defensive structure has way more to do than with winning than goaltending in the NHL right now. And I think Edmonton is showing that right now because they've actually committed to defense for the first time this year in the McDavid era. And they're in the Stanley Cup final, and they're actually winning games right now. It didn't look so good, but they're winning games, and they're playing pretty well defensively as a team. Not that their defense is good, but as a team. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Not so much goaltending anymore. I think it's changing. When a guy, no disrespect to Adin Hill, when Adin Hill wins a Stanley Cup as a starter, we're talking about Hellebuck for, $11 million or whatever at the time, right? Before he signed the extension. And Shesterkin, let's say, for $12 million. They're great goaltenders, right? But they're not in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Very
interesting.
Hellebuck looks at Berube. What does it say? Hellebuck didn't want to stay there a couple years ago. He signed a long-term contract to get that extension. He's in the market. He's familiar. Yeah, but I'd be the first one to be happy. We're 12 likes away from 50 to get that button. I'd be the first one to be happy if we get Connor Hellebuck. That would be insane. It's just doesn't seem realistic. The Jets aren't going to do that. They just re-signed everybody. Scheifele, and they're trying to compete, and he is their best chance to compete. Like, he's the best goalie in the NHL. So,
and I do believe, I don't know what other people think right now, but personally, from what I've seen, what I've been told, I believe the Leafs need a stopgap option like a Jake Allen or even Markstrom, like we mentioned, for a year or two, because I do believe Hildeby is the guy. Hildeby is the guy coming up. He's going to be the next starting goalie of the Maple Leafs, and he's supposed to be that good. So, but you have to wait for him. That's a problem. You can't rush a guy like that, right? Because you want it to pan out. So let him get a full year in the AHL, see what that's about, and then maybe you can call him up. So I wouldn't rush him, but I think he's going to end up being the guy. But we'll have to see. And it's interesting, the Wool thing about being injury prone. Like, we don't have a huge sample size of Wool still, right? I think he's played under 50 career games. That only happened really this year. He got hurt against Ottawa. He missed like the entire season. It was early on in the season. Then he came back and got hurt again in game 6, right? So yes, 2 injuries. Is he injury prone? I don't know. We haven't really seen that over his entire career. He had a bad season in that way. But Tree Living mentioned, what can we do for this goaltender to keep him healthy? So I think that's something they're going to look at too. I wonder if, not to take it out of hockey, but look what the Raptors did with Kawhi, right? He was struggling and they got him there to the final, and it worked. And he struggled since he left, right? So we'll see what the training staff can do with that. I wonder what happens with that. But Philip Gustafsson too, I think that's very interesting. He's a good goaltender too. Obviously there were some trades involving Mitch Marner to Minnesota as well. And obviously Gustafsson could be included in that. Doesn't make a lot for the next 2 years. I think that's another great stopgap option. So that's a great choice as well. He's young. He's been playing really well. Minnesota isn't a cap crunch though. So I wonder what a trade like that looks like, because obviously you're giving up Probably your better goaltender option at this point because of Fleury, right? He's getting older, probably going to retire. So I'm not sure they do that, but I think it's a good option. It's a very good option. So very interesting.
Yeah.
Wouldn't trade everyone though. Would you trade everyone, Nick?
No.
Would you blow it up?
No. I just, like the Leafs are in such a weird spot. It all relies on this Marner stuff. Like whether we're talking about Hellebuck or like all these free agents, it all relies on whether or not Mitch Marner will be able to get a decent haul back. And I think he will be able to. But a long time ago, Ron Wilson said that conditioning had a lot to do with frequency injury. I don't think that's the issue for Wall, but maybe. He hasn't played a ton of NHL games. Said the 170 in here, 6 likes away from 50. If we get that, it's a good.
Wall's injury, I don't like both of them weren't a result
especially
of
the playoffs one, freak injury.
Yeah, I don't think either of them were a result of conditioning or the shape that he's in. Like they were kind of freak injuries, right? Like any that could happen to anybody. So although Ron Wilson is correct, right? You need to have your conditioning up. You have to be in shape, right? So that's another thing too. But he is correct in that way for sure.
Yeah. Camp Kelly. This is kind of hidden. 1 second. I have my chat. There's a lot of guys left. Markstrom already gone to New Jersey as of an hour or so ago. Paul Taylor with the donation. Paul. Thank you so much, Paul. Yeah, you've been a constant supporter. Let me drop the Leaf super chat. Thank you so much for the support. Yeah, again, we're going live every Wednesday to talk Leafs. And one of these Wednesdays, probably a couple weeks from now, when the July, whatever the first week of July Wednesday is, going to be electric. I enjoy your daily videos, so cheers. I would like to see some videos on what the Leafs can do to improve the team without trading Mitch Marner. I like that. We actually have one tomorrow on that. We have one tomorrow on kind of that.
That'll come. But to give a snippet, just an overall look, I think the Leafs this offseason should definitely focus, at least in free agency, upgrading the defense because there's a lot of really good options out there. And you're probably going to overpay. That's what free agency is, like a little bit. But I think in terms of free agency, the Leafs should focus on upgrading the defense. Then you build the rest of the team. See if you can add some depth scoring for, not a lot of money, right? Don't go out and get, somebody crazy unless you have the cap space for it. But try to improve that depth scoring where you can. And the special teams, penalty kill, right? Get some decent penalty killers. I wonder if you can offload Yarncroke, because I wonder if he even fits into the system anymore too. And David Kamp's contract is atrocious. We spent almost no time talking about it this year. That contract is atrocious. And it's going to continue to be atrocious until the end of it in a few years. So
thank you again, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Paul. But we'll have something on that for sure.
There'll be a lot of those, especially once Mitch Marner gets traded, because
that's right.
That's all we'll have to talk about. 1 like away from 50 if you guys do that. And again, thank you, Paul, for the super chat. It's appreciated. Join these weekly streams, even though I have basketball every single Wednesday, but it is what it is. What the team could look like. Yeah, we're going to do, there's tons of different videos coming, like with all that stuff, trade stuff aside. It's just right now, it's kind of, the focus is trading.
Mitch Marner. Yeah. Trading because that's all you can do right now. And the focus is on Mitch Marner because it's the most obvious. We know Tavares isn't going anywhere for the most part.
I hope not.
We don't think so. We don't think so. And honestly, I wouldn't like a lot of people say trading Tavares is the answer. Wait a year. Like the thing with me is the mindset, right? Marner should be performing at a higher level in the playoffs. He's younger. He makes more money. Tavares is older. We knew that this is what was going to happen at the end of the contract. He's going to come back and make less. He's going to have a lesser role. Everything will work out and it'll be fine and dandy. Just wait a year, right? Just wait a year. That's it. He'll probably end up retiring a Maple Leaf. That's what I think.
I think running it back at the core 4 is a gong show. Agreed. I hope it doesn't happen, even though there was a report that came out recently saying that it could. So, I'm hoping.
But, okay, this is the thing. I'm glad you bring that up. These reports that have been coming out recently, I don't think they're coming from the Leafs. Yeah, I just don't, right? I don't. And I think it's, the camp trying to leverage some stuff, which is fine. That's totally fine. But, I think that's it.
Marner's agent's a bit of a jerk.
Love John Tavares.
I think he'll make it difficult to trade Marner, so that's why I like to see vids in the rest of the team. Yeah, Paul, that'll be coming. And we mentioned them within a lot of the videos as well, but we have one coming tomorrow that's going to be not Marner related, focused on some of the other guys.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of the team's construction is going to, I think the team will look different, especially after the Marner trade, but they'll have a lot of work to do after the Marner trade once that happens. If that happens, and there's a chance it doesn't happen. If the Marner trade doesn't happen, then once there's an indication, they have to go in another direction.
One thing that's also underrated that I haven't really heard anyone talk about yet is I feel like Berube is going to have a lot of input into the type of players that they sign or don't sign this offseason too, right? What's going to fit into his system, what he thinks can win a Stanley Cup, because that's what he's here to do, right? This is the team is in a Stanley Cup window. So not a lot of people are talking about that. I think he's going to have a lot of input on the types of players. So we might be surprised in who they sign, right? It might not be exactly who you think. But hopefully they make a pretty big splash, because the last couple seasons, like, you can't do anything because you don't have the cap and you're running it back with these guys. And we've seen it to this point. It just doesn't make sense.
Shane lost his internet 15 minutes. Did I miss anything? Yeah, Marner's traded. Tavares is traded, and it's all.
That's right. Riley's gone. Shane must
Riley's
be.
gone.
Shane,
No,
if I said that, Shane would love that.
Well, you actually missed the Paul donation. Shout out to Paul.
Yeah, shout out
basically,
Paul.
he's talking about non-Marner trade, what the Leafs can do. But yeah, shout out to Paul. Marner to Canes for Pesci, and it's covered on my screen for some reason.
Natchez.
So who are the goalies left? UC Saros could be for potential trade. Laurent Brossoit. A lot of the free agent ones are left.
Yeah.
Markstrom was the biggest goalie.
To go back to that one, sorry, Nick. Pesci and Natchez. Pesci is a free agent, so that wouldn't work. Natchez is pretty interesting because he wants a larger role. So if Marner was to leave, he could fill that role. He wants to go to a contender and he wants to have a bigger role. So I think that'd be pretty interesting. And then in terms of goaltenders, yeah, I think we've mentioned them. There's not many in the NHL elite, right? Elite goaltenders. So it's gonna be interesting. I don't know. The domino that has to fall is Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner.
I'm looking at this defensive pairing now, and yeah, there's literally a chance that everyone besides the middle is gone, and probably Riley stays. Half of these guys are most likely gone by the start of next season, and we'll be doing a live stream after the game or before the game, whatever ends up being, of game one. And we should do that in our video or stream, whatever we end up doing. Just show the defensive pairings for game one and how different they are, and maybe they'll be the same. Maybe we'll end up being upset.
It'll be different.
Definitely.
It'll be different. Yeah, I don't think they're happy with that whatsoever.
Well, Edmondson's gone and Labuschagin's gone. Edmondson, I wouldn't mind having him come back anyway, but
he might come back. He's going to test free agency. He might get a lot of money somewhere else, right? And that's why he would want to leave. But I think it's going to look different. So it'll be interesting. But I could see a world where a majority of these guys, Riley will probably come back because the salary, like it would have to be a significant deal. But I could see a world where like 3 of these guys are back. I think they're going to change a lot. That the makeup of the team is going to look different, and that's a good thing. I want to ask the chat too before we wrap it up. If Mitch Marner doesn't get traded, because this is a very real possibility now, because they're not going to trade him just to trade him, and I think that would be dumb at the end of the day too. What do the Leafs do? Because you have hardly any salary cap to really make any significant upgrades, and now you're kind of in a pinch where you ride out the season again. You're probably going to get the same answer again, and maybe he walks. And then you can kind of start to rebuild using that salary cap in free agency, or salary space, I should say, in free agency next year. But what do you do? What do you do? It's very, very interesting. I think most likely he gets traded. I feel like he's going to end up working with the team to get a trade done. Because listen, he wants more money. I don't know if the Leafs are going to give him that, right? And he also wants that 8th year of
what are your thoughts on a sign and trade, Marner?
Most likely outcome, I think, now at this point. They also showed their hand though. That's what they want. So I wonder if they work with the Leafs towards a sign and trade. You know what I'm saying?
You're saying Marner's camp showed their hand, yeah.
Yeah. So exactly. So they told the Leafs their plan basically through the media now, right? That they want the 8th year. So I wonder if them and the Leafs kind of come towards a deal where they're like, we'll give you the 8th year extension if you agree to this trade.
And I don't want Samsonov back. No.
No, Samsonov.
And neither does Treliving.
Treliving made it pretty clear that thank you for your service and we will find somebody else.
Jeff Collins trying to upgrade in the secondary scoring and defenseman. 20 million is plenty of space to add some impact guys. Tend to agree?
Yeah, but you have to also think if Bertuzzi comes back, that's quickly cut to 14 million. You have to upgrade the defense, which is quickly going to be cut to 7 million. And probably add another defenseman. Then you have 2 million left over. You still have some holes on offense. You have to find a goalie. Interesting. It could get interesting very quickly. But that's if that happens, right? Obviously, these guys would have to take a pay cut, some of them. So
let's get to 70 likes if you're new here. Again, we go live every single Wednesday. Leafs videos every day. I mean, hit the subscribe button too. No harm. On the road to 11,000 by end of June. I mean, that's a stretch, but try.
No, it's gonna happen by the draft.
When is the draft?
Next Friday, I believe. I think it's next Friday.
9 days. Marner's gone. Probably. I don't mind Marner leaving at this point. I'd rather see Domi back. What does that say? Then Bertuzzi. I agree.
Then Bertuzzi, yes, absolutely.
Marner the
Yep.
Blues for Luke Schenn and Colton Parayko.
See, that is interesting because the salary cap, you can make that work with the salary. But again, I'm worried about like Shen is kind of aging as well. But these are guys who played for Berube. So
Swayman to the Leafs. Thoughts?
they wouldn't make that trade. And you can't offer sheet them because you don't have the assets to do that. So,
Hope you guys are live all day, July 1st.
I think we'll make an appearance.
We'll definitely be live. We'll probably do a bunch of videos and then go live. I think is probably the best way to go. Or maybe we'll go live and then do a bunch of videos. I haven't fully decided yet, but
yeah, we'll see.
You'll see us. You'll see us plenty.
We'll definitely have like a recap of
probably
the stuff that
videos
goes
and
on that
everything,
day.
and then a stream. Or I mean, it depends. We don't really know what happens. So there could be an emergency live if Marner gets traded, for example. That's probably like if Marner gets traded or something big happens like that, you'll definitely see us. And if not, if it's like minor moves, then you'll see us anyway. But probably get the videos going.
There's going to be some rumblings heading up to that, because if they do trade him, let's say July 1st when they can, when his signing bonus is paid off, basically, there's going to be rumblings heading into the draft and July 1st because they're going to put the deal together before then if they want to move off of him at that date, right? So we're going to hear something next week, whether it's yes or no, right? So stuff will be happening. It's just we have to wait till that day for it to actually,
I'd rather Buchnevich than Shen. Is it still 3 firsts as a penalty to offer sheet?
So I don't know what the exact penalty is for, like, let's say Swayman, for example, but the Leafs don't have the assets for that. There's no way. And they wouldn't do it for that player, I don't think, because offer sheets, I don't know. They're crazy these days. If like Carolina got burnt big time on that Montreal one because it was literally a meme that they wanted to do, and they got burnt big time. And that wasn't even like a top end player, right? They didn't even give up that much, I guess. But the Swayman offer sheet would be ridiculous.
Who would you rather trade, Yarncroke or Kemp? Probably Yarncroke for me, but I don't know.
I agree, Nick. And it's because I feel like he gets lost in the shuffle sometimes. Kampf has a definite role. He just makes too much for that role, right? Yeah. But Yarncroke is kind of like, somebody's injured. He's second line now.
Borderline NHL player. It's like a guy who's, difference between being like serviceable and overpaid versus not necessarily overpaid, but not serviceable.
Correct. Yeah. He's right there on the line.
He goes to a free agency frenzy. If that means go live and discuss everything that's been happening around the NHL, yeah, we can.
Yes, we will. Yes,
also, any final questions before I have basketball in 30 minutes and I haven't gotten ready yet. So
you got to do your warm-up routine.
Yeah. Long stream though, 45 minutes. Again, we aim for 45 minutes to an hour, so it's good. I was supposed to be ready 15 minutes earlier, but I wasn't. So any final thoughts? These streams are starting to do really good, so we're going to continue it. Every Wednesday, again, let's try to get to 100 likes. We're at 71. On your way out, just click the button. Shout out to 200 in here, but just hit the button. We're going to be going live every Wednesday, and then more once July hits. Whenever July 1st, whenever July 1st is, which I think is on a Monday.
I believe so.
We'll be live the Monday, and we'll be live that Wednesday because it's 2 days later. And we'll probably be live before that as well. Any final thoughts for a wrap up, Darius? It's
going to be interesting offseason. I wonder if the Leafs kind of put themselves in a situation where Easton Cowan has to play next year because of the cap situation too. Mitch Marner, I still do believe they move off of him because it like you can't come out and say there's changes coming and the philosophy is dead and then not make any changes. It just doesn't make any sense. I think a lot of the reports that have come out over the last 2 weeks are from Marner's side and not the Leafs side. I feel like the Leafs have been pretty quiet considering. I feel like next week you're going to hear a lot of rumblings about Mitch Marner, whether it's, he will be traded or won't be traded and what that looks like. I feel like the trade is going to be something that we don't expect. Like it's probably not going to be any of the trades that we've seen so far. And it's going to be fun. I feel like watching the Leafs. The one thing I'm excited about, trades aside, free agency aside, all of us aside, I feel like I've been watching the same exact Leafs team for the last 6 years.
I'm the same way. Same with the Jays. So this is the same stuff.
Like you watch the exact same team, and you're like, okay, call me when the playoffs start. And the playoffs start, and you see the same thing every time, right? And you're like disappointed every time. I feel like this year, I'm going to turn on a game in October and be like, this is different. This is nice. So I'm excited for that. I'm very excited for that.
You guys start a half hour earlier on Wednesdays? It's the plan. At least 15. Like the goal is 5 o'clock Eastern. Would make it a lot easier for me. It's just the problem is timing is tough. There's a lot of stuff on the go. But I got to. I will.
Yes.
Because the game's at 7, which is in 30 minutes. So, all right. Very, very good turnout today. Again, we'll video tomorrow, video every single day. I don't think we've missed one in months now, but every day, and we'll be we'll be back on Wednesday next week for a stream, maybe earlier depending on what happens. You might see us earlier. You might see us on a day between now and Wednesday because of stuff is starting to go down now with the Leafs. So you might see some stuff, or not with the Leafs, but with the NHL. So you might see us hop on here depending. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Shout out to Paul for the $10. And it's going to be a wild next couple weeks. So brace yourselves, and we will see you all next Wednesday at the very latest. Well, we'll see you tomorrow in tomorrow's video.